Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're tackling something literally monumental. We are going to demystify the complex yet absolutely awe-inspiring biological classification system that we use to organize all life on Earth. If you've ever looked at a galloping horse, a migrating bird, or honestly, even just a potted plant sitting in your living room and wondered exactly how scientists keep track of it all, you are in the exact right place. We're going to explore the architecture of life itself and see exactly how we sort the sheer chaos of biodiversity into a beautifully structured system. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the wonder of biodiversity, move on to solving the massive naming problem, break down the rules of binomial nomenclature, understand taxonomic categories, and finally, map out the grand hierarchy of life. Let's jump in.
Section 1. The Wonder of Biodiversity.
So, to really wrap our heads around the scale of life on Earth, I mean everything from freezing mountain peaks to boiling hot springs, we gotta look at the numbers. Right now, scientists estimate there are between 1.7 and 1.8 million described species. Million! And here's the crazy part. That's just what we know about. It is definitely not a finished list. We are constantly finding new organisms, making this an ever-expanding, massive catalog of life.
Moving on to Section 2. Solving the naming problem.
Now, with almost 2 million species, you can probably guess that talking about them could turn into a total logistical nightmare, right? Think about the contrast here. You have the absolute chaos of local names on one hand, and the elegant clarity of a global scientific standard on the other. If we only used local names for plants and animals, those names would change immensely from town to town, even within the exact same country. It would be total confusion. So, to actually communicate with each other, biologists needed a way to standardize naming so that one particular organism has the exact same name everywhere on Earth. This vital process, it's called nomenclature.
Which brings us to Section 3, Rules of Binomial Nomenclature. To make this universal standard work, scientists set up some strict rulebooks, like the ICBN for plants and the ICZN for animals. And the foundation of all of this is binomial nomenclature. Formalized by the scientist Carolus Linnaeus, this is our universal system for bringing order to the chaos. It's an incredibly clever, convenient two-word format. Basically, every single scientific name gets two components, the generic name and the specific epithet. And this system isn't just random. It follows some really strict universal rules. Imagine you've just discovered a brand new species, and you get to name it. First off, you'd use Latin, and you'd write it in italics. Your very first word is the genus, and you capitalize that one. Then comes the second word, the specific epithet, all in lowercase. Now, if you're writing this out by hand, you actually have to underline both words separately. Oh, and the best part? To claim your discovery, your abbreviated name gets tacked right onto the very end.
Let's actually see these rules in action with an everyday anchor we all know, the mango. The scientific name here is Mangifera indica Linn. See how Mangifera is the genus? It gets that capital M. Then indica is our specific epithet, starting with a lowercase I. And that Linn at the end, that tells us this species was first scientifically described by Linnaeus himself. It's elegant, it's precise, and honestly, it leaves absolutely zero room for geographical confusion.
All right, Section 4, Understanding Taxonomic Categories. So giving an organism a name is really just step one. Next, we have to file it away in a hierarchical sorting system, kind of like a massive filing cabinet for the entire natural world. But before we open that cabinet, we have to acknowledge the foundational folder, the species. And we owe a huge part of our modern understanding of this to Ernst Mayr. Born in 1904, this Harvard evolutionary biologist was literally known as the Darwin of the 20th century. Over an incredible 80-year career, he pioneered the definition of a biological species that we still use today. His work was so profound that he actually won biology's Triple Crown, the Balzan, International, and Crafoord Prizes.
Let's look at how this filing cabinet actually builds upwards. We start at the bottom with individual species that share fundamental similarities. Take big cats, for example. You've got the lion, which is Panthera leo, the leopard, Panthera pardus, and the tiger, Panthera tigris. Because these closely related species share several common features, they all get folded together into the next taxonomic level up, the genus, in this case, the genus Panthera.
Now, let's pull the camera back even further. We take similar genera and group them into broader categories called families. So we take that genus Panthera, our big cats, and we group it with the genus Felis, which includes your typical smaller cats. Put them together, and they form the family Felidae. But as anyone with pets knows, a cat is definitely not a dog. So naturally, dogs are appropriately separated out into their completely own distinct family called Canidae. Make sense, right?
Finally, Section 5, the hierarchy of life. Zooming all the way out now, we can see the grand architecture of life. Every single step on this ladder is a taxon. We start at the very bottom with species and climb upwards, aggregating into a genus, grouping into a family, then an order, and a class. For animals, those classes merge into a phylum, or a division if we're talking about plants, until finally everything culminates at the very top level, the kingdom.
Now, here is a really crucial rule about this scale you absolutely must understand. As you move higher up, from species all the way up to kingdom, the number of common characteristics shared by those organisms actually decreases. Lower taxa, like a species or a genus, share a ton of similarities. But as you climb higher up the hierarchy, it gets way more difficult to figure out how things relate to other taxa at that exact same level. Basically, the problem of classification becomes exponentially more complex the higher you go.
Let's pause here and think about this biological address system in action. Imagine mapping completely different organisms right side by side. You have man, Homo sapiens, sitting in the phylum Chordata, which contrasts sharply with a housefly over in Arthropoda, or trace a mango right next to wheat. Seeing this laid out just proves how taxonomy gives a highly precise, organized zip code to literally every single living thing on our planet.
But beyond all the strict mechanics of sorting and classifying, there is a really profound philosophical impact to this science. Our source text notes that realizing how we share similarities with other organisms, both horizontally across our present day and vertically all the way back through time, was a massive turning point. The realization that all present-day living organisms are related to each other and to all organisms that ever lived on this earth was a revelation which humbled humanity, and it led directly to modern cultural movements for the conservation of biodiversity.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. Taxonomy isn't just about sticking labels on things. It's about understanding our true relationship with the rest of the planet. So how does knowing our exact, interconnected place in the taxonomic tree of life inspire the conservation of global biodiversity? Think about it. When we realize that we literally share the exact same biological filing cabinet with the galloping horse, the migrating bird, and even the mango tree, it kind of changes your perspective entirely, doesn't it? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer on the incredible architecture of life. Keep learning, keep exploring, and I'll catch you next time.